What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Wednesday. Making a turn already on this week of ours, August 28th. Big thanks for tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from. And big thanks to listening wherever or however you're listening to us, whether it's on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM, also available online, sportstalk1051.com. You got the app, Sports Talk app. Download that, take it on the go. Smart devices, smart speakers, and of course the video stream up and rolling on Facebook and YouTube here this morning. Got a big game plan. What do we got on that game plan? Well, the initial roster is set for the pack for the green and gold. Anything kind of surprise you? What jumped out to you? Shocked you? Disappointed you? Whatever the case may be. But as we know, we mentioned it before we were off the air yesterday. Anders Carlson did not make the team. Greg Joseph did make the team. We will see whether that sticks, whether that holds. Maybe the Packers going to be looking at some of the other kickers potentially released. Could they potentially be working on a trade out there? That remains to be seen. But right now, Joseph is the kicker on this Packers roster. So got that. And then A.J. Dillon on injured reserve, not designated to return. Not designated to return, which potentially could mean his Packers career is over with. Had to sneeze there quick. Sorry about that. But we're going to talk a little bit about A.J. Dillon and potentially, I mean, we talked to Dr. Crow about it last week with his stinger injury. We talked about, not to spread any, info out there that's not confirmed or anything like that, but the fact that, he had another stinger injury, something that uh, ended his season last year or affected the end of the season last year for him, and now he's not able to even play at all this year. You kind of have to wonder: is there more going on with AJ Dillon and his neck injury right now? Now, we haven't heard if he's done career wise. There's been some talk about there maybe an injury settlement, so another team could, he could be released and maybe another team would pick him up. But I think the fact that, and we know Green Bay has been very cautious with injuries too, right? We've seen it, we've heard about it. I mean, it's been a thing for a long time out there. But it sucks. Okay, I'll just come out and say it sucks. First of all, he's my kid's favorite player, so I mean, we just got him an AJ Dillon bobblehead on Saturday for crying out loud. But I mean, from a career perspective, it sucks that we may not see 28 suit up again in that green and gold with that G on that helmet. The mayor of Door County. I mean, a player that I think a lot of Packers fans gravitated towards, was a big fan favorite. Sure, his play suffered or wasn't that great the last couple of years after his second year, kind of setting the bar fairly high up there. Absolutely. Totally get that. But can also still say it sucks. It stinks for AJ Dillon. Now, I don't know again if his career is done with, but man, I was really looking forward to seeing A.J. Dillon out there this year in a potentially maybe altered, different type of role for him within this offense. So, but talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. What else stood out to you on the roster? All right, give me your take. Hit me up with a text 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. What stood out to you? So we got that coming up here. And then today we'll know from players who were claimed on waivers and such. So that should be in a few hours for sure at the end of this hour and such. So, but yeah. Okay, we'll get to that coming up here in just a second. Also, Brewers back in action last night. Speaking of injuries, Christian Yelich was back with the team. I talked a little bit with the media beforehand, and I know Christian Yelich has been a guy too that some fans have speculated, oh boy, is his career done with? But he said before the game, quote, I think everybody sees back surgery and they think, oh, that's the end of your career. But in my mind, that couldn't be any further from the truth. I think that it's going to help me tremendously. I think I'll feel a lot better than I have in the last few years. In that sense, it's cool. It's a really nice thing. The only thing that's really not great about this is the timing aspect of this and not being able to finish the season to take part in what is hopefully another postseason run. That's unfortunate because it's a really fun team to be a part of. So that was from Christian Yelich before the game yesterday. So Brewers, though, scoreboard wise, they fell to the Giants in game one of their series, 5-4. Willie Adames hitting another home run in the bottom of the sixth to take the lead for the Crew. But Brewers not able to hold on top of seventh. Another error from Willie Adames on the defensive side, too. But Brewers just not able to hold on, not able to tack on a couple runs later on in the game, and ended up falling last night in a 5-4 game. Payamps getting charged with the loss last night. Tobias Myers, no decision for him. 5 innings, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 4 Ks. Did give up a couple of dingers to the Brewers. So we were talking about Logan Webb, and he's been eating up some innings lately for the Giants and such. But the Brewers able to knock him out after 5. He gave up 4 earned runs. Did walk 3 too, and he also gave up a couple dingers, including 1 2 again. Jackson Cheerio, and Jackson Cheerio's home run. So, first of all, American Family Field, they got that new scoreboard out there. Apparently, I was reading a little bit this morning from Brewers.com. Cost between $12 to $14 million to install. Jackson Cheerio's home run, his longest home run, was that 2-run shot that's sailed about 449 feet according to StatCast, and it actually knocked out a section of the LED scoreboard that was installed. You could, if you look it up on the internet, you could see like a big old black box on there and such. But yeah, Jackson Cheerio, I guess, literally leaving his mark, if you will. Blake Perkins again, another run saving, home run saving Rob in center field there. I mean, that dude, I think what's up to 4 he's had this year of robbing home runs over by the warning track over the fence there and such. So just a fantastic defensive player, makes it look so easy for everybody else out there. But Brewers will be back at it tonight to try to even up this series with the Giants. First pitch again, same time, 7:10 for the Crew. Brewers 9 games up on the Cubs now for first place in the NL Central. But we got Freddie Peralta on the mound tonight for the Crew, looking for his 7th win. Harrison's going to be on the mound for the Giants. We'll talk some baseball. We'll talk some Brewers. Coming up a little bit later on here as well. We got some business of sports to get to. We'll talk about that coming up just past 8 o'clock here this morning. So we'll hit that up. We'll throw some more college football chat in here as we get closer to the Badgers kicking off their season coming up this Friday night. So we'll talk some more college football coming at you too. So let's get things rolling here this morning. Let's kick it off with a little with a little lead off. Excuse me. Talking some Packers. Your first reaction, your first thoughts on the initial 53-man roster. The initial 53-man roster. Anything surprise you? Anything stand out to you? Anything you would have done differently? Or maybe you're like, nope, this is exactly what I picked. This is exactly what I would have done. Outside of A.J. Dillon and maybe Anders, there was a couple other decisions, moves made that surprised me a little bit. And it's different to it. I got to keep, I'm one of those two. I got to keep reminding myself of this, that, it changed over the last couple of years where you can promote somebody from the practice squad day before to play in a game. Now there's a max of that. I believe it's just 3 times, and then you got to add them to your active roster. So there's a little strategy involved with that, no doubt about it. But at the same time, you're also, if that's what you're thinking, like, okay, we could put this guy on waivers and maybe keep this other guy, but we'll bring him back on practice squad and who we'll play him on game days and such. And then maybe there's an injury and then we could promote him to the active roster. Still a risk that nobody else would go out there and claim him. But, a couple guys that were cut, Kalen King, rookie 7th rounder, Anthony Johnson Jr. I thought had a good game on Saturday too. So there was a couple surprise moves from the Pack, and then the Packers keeping 10 offensive linemen. So let's break it down, shall we? We'll take our first break, and then the leadoff coming up. We'll talk a little Packers to take a look at this roster. Then we got some Brewers chat lined up for you as well. Stick around. We're just getting things rolling here on this Wednesday morning. Quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Doesn't one of those taco omelets from VFW Post 305 sound absolutely amazing right now on this Wednesday morning? It sure does. So if you are maybe trying to think, what should I grab for breakfast here this morning? Go check out VFW Post 305 on 1300 Star Avenue. All right. Taco omelet. It's amazing. Big thanks again, G-Man, for a couple weeks ago for dropping one of those off. Speaking of VFW Post 305, too, coming up. So parents, if you're listening, with the kiddos, maybe you've gotten back or into card collecting with your kiddos, or maybe the kiddos are big into card collecting these days. But September 8th at the VFW Post 305, our good friends from the Card Collecting Club, they have their second annual sports cards kickoff for kids, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So put that on your calendars. Don't have to worry about a Packer game that day over there too. So free event for the kids, goodie bags at the door, free sports card breaks, contests to win numbered jersey, autographed cards, so much more. Also, silent auction and a bunch of cards and sports memorabilia. So, Brian and the Card Collecting Club do a fantastic job with that and with the kiddos and such. So, again, September 8th at our good friends at the VFW Post 305, the second annual sports cards kickoff for kids. All right, let's get things rolling here this morning, shall we? Let's do some what is that got some spam stuff out there. So, but nonetheless, let's do some Packers talk here to lead things off this morning. The initial roster is set, right? The initial roster is set for the Packers. We use the word initial because it still could change before they take on the Eagles on September 6th. But the Packers, as we know, have elected to right now keep Greg Joseph as their kicker over Anders Carlson. We'll see if that's something that holds true. I still have my doubts on it, but I don't know what Goody and the rest of the Packers brass is thinking over there at 1265 Lombardi Avenue. Maybe they know something more than, well, they probably do know more something than a lot of us out there. But Anders gone after just 1 year. Also, A.J. Dillon, he ain't playing this year for the Packers, placed on injured reserve, does not have the designation to return. So either he's done, or maybe there's a buyout, an injury buyout, where he could potentially go to another team if he's healthy enough. I'm concerned about it. We talked with Dr. Crow about it last week. If you missed that conversation, you can check it out in another episode of the Man Cave podcast. But you got to wonder now, is there some neck issues going on over there? Second stinger. Remember last season? It's what kind of affected the end of his regular season last year. I don't want to spread any maybe false info or anything like that, but the fact that you're already done for the year, that does not bode well. That does not bode well. So, Jordan Love, Malik Willis, that trade becoming official pending physical. Those are your quarterbacks. Your running backs, Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, and Emmanuel Wilson. So, Marshawn Lloyd not placed on the injured reserve. Maybe potentially could later on, who knows, but right now, not. Receivers, Romeo, Christian, Jaden, Dontavian, Malik Heath, Bo Melton. So the receivers that the Packers ended their season with last year are the ones that they're going to begin with this year. Grant DuBose not making the initial 53-man roster. Toure also cut from the team. Tight ends, just 3. Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Ben Sims, Tyler Davis also placed on injured reserve. Offensive linemen, Packers electing to keep 10 of them. Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Rasheed Walker, Zach Tom, Sean Ryan, Jordan Morgan, Andre Dillard, Jacob Monk, and then the Packers did elect to keep Kadeem Telfort and Travis Glover, releasing Royce Newman, Caleb Jones, amongst others. And I think it's fair to say when we go to the defensive ends, because of his game that we saw on Saturday, Aaron Mosby won himself a job. He made the initial 53-man roster. Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Kingsley Enagbare, Bretton Cox Jr., and Aaron Mosby. I think it's fair to say he won himself a job for what the performance he had on Saturday. Defensive tackles was pretty much it was pretty much cut and dry. Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae White, Carl Brooks, Colby Wooden. They did place Jonathan Ford, who got hurt on Saturday on injured reserve, but he gets the designated to return status for him. Linebackers, again, it was kind of what we all thought there. Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, Eric Wilson, Edrin Cooper, Tyron Hopper, Christian Welch was released, but you got to wonder maybe he could. Packers hopefully thinking I'm assuming they're hoping that he can get back on the practice squad there. 5 corners, so they did just go with the 5 corners. Jair, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn, Carrington, but electing to go with the veteran Corey Ballantyne over Kalen King. Again, I got to imagine the Packers, Kalen King, they're wanting Kalen King on the practice squad. Safeties, Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Evan Williams, Oladapo, rookie. But the Packers electing to keep Zane Anderson over Anthony Johnson Jr. And Anthony Johnson Jr., I thought had a solid camp. I thought he had a solid game on Saturday. This move tells me there was special teams involved in that decision, keeping Zane over Anthony Johnson Jr. on the initial 53-man roster. That's what kind of stands out to me. And then, of course, Greg Joseph, Daniel Whalen, and Matt Orzak. So that is, again, your initial 53-player roster for the Packers. What stood out to you? What decisions, what moves do you maybe not agree with? That sort of stuff. I'll say it again. The 2 moves that kind of surprised me that they didn't make the roster was Kalen King. I thought Kalen King earned a job. I mean, he was getting reps at the nickel, at the corner slot with the second defense at times in practice. High praise from Matt LaFleur, made plays again on Saturday. So I was surprised they did not keep Kalen King. I think they feel like they can clear him through waivers and get him on the practice squad and such. That's a risk, in my opinion. And it might work out for Green Bay. It might. But it just takes one team to claim him on waivers, and then you don't have the guy. So I hope we haven't seen the last of Kalen King because I think there's something there with the kid. I think let's get him back on this ball club. I would love to see it. I want Kalen King back because I think that kid has a lot of talents that we can mold into this thing. So I hope we get to see number 34 back in Green Bay at that practice squad. And I'll say the same thing about Anthony Johnson Jr. I like Anthony Johnson Jr. I liked him last year. I think he's taken some steps this year in year 2. I understand, maybe keeping Zane Anderson for special teams purposes over there. So I hope Green Bay is able to bring back Anthony Johnson Jr. as part of that practice squad too. So those were the 2 moves I think surprised me the most because outside of the Anders and A.J. Dillon ones there. But I thought for sure Kalen King was going to be making this roster. But again, you look at Corey, played a lot of snaps last year with the starting defense because of injuries, right? Got a lot of experience there. So I understand Green Bay, wanting to keep him. They re-signed him to bring him back. This guy who logged a lot of snaps with this ball club. But I got to imagine Green Bay is really hoping they can bring back Anthony Johnson Jr. and Kalen King to this roster. A couple other things that I guess stood out to me: the 10 offensive linemen, deciding to keep those 10 instead of maybe thinking, let's try to get somebody back on the practice squad there. I mean, I'm not surprised with who was released. I think Royce Newman, the time was just maybe for some fans that it was a little too late. Probably would have wanted him released last year and such. Caleb Jones, I think, massive tackle a couple years ago they were excited about his potential and maybe just didn't develop into the type of tackle, the type of player that they were hoping for at this point in time. So I'm not surprised by any of the players they released. I think I'm just surprised they did go ahead and keep 10. And I think, kind of looking at the guys they kept, Kadeem Telfort, Travis Glover were probably the two that got those last two spots. So instead of trying to figure out who got it, they're keeping the youngster guys over there, and maybe they weren't comfortable with the fact of putting one of those guys out there on waivers and having another team claim them. Because remember, too, there's going to be some strategy with some of these teams here. You're going to keep your 53. Guys make that initial 53, but then after a couple days, like after today, if the Packers are awarded a waiver claim on somebody, they're going to have to make another roster move. So if they've put a claim in on somebody or a couple players and they're awarded those guys, well, you're going to have to release a couple guys after that. So I don't want to give the impression that this is the final 53 because let's give it a day or two here too. And maybe one of those guys that could be that odd man out. If the Packers are awarded somebody on waivers that's not a kicker, could be one of those back end offensive linemen. Receivers, I don't think there's a big surprise. I think they would love to have Grant back on the practice squad. He did a lot of good stuff in the preseason. Obviously, that first game stood out. But I think, Bull Melton coming back from that game against the Browns, that first game with a couple drops and knowing what he did last year boded well for him. Malik Heath having a solid game. I think that just kind of solidified that. And, Grant hopefully will be back on the practice squad there. Marshawn Lloyd, him not getting the injured reserve designation, I think kind of tells us a little bit that maybe he's close, that the hamstring injury wasn't too serious. And I would imagine that he's going to be, practicing and such at some point soon because they just kept those three running backs. They elected not to, keep Merriweather or McCrary. And again, I think Merriweather is a prime practice squad candidate over there. But Emmanuel Wilson, of course, I think the more we, after the Lloyd injury and then A.J. Dillon going through that stinger, I think it was pretty much a foregone conclusion that Emmanuel Wilson was going to make this team. So not a big surprise over there. And, again, Anders getting released after a second year. I still feel like there's going to be a different kicker other than Greg Joseph. I think he's on the roster right now. Whether the Packers put a waiver claim on another kicker or make a trade, I feel like eventually that's going to happen. That's just my gut. That's just my gut right now. And again, the A.J. Dillon situation, it sucks. A fan favorite. He's my kid's favorite player. I was excited to see potentially a new role for him within this offense. The dude slimmed down, didn't lose any weight, just actually gained more muscle and less fat. So, I mean, he was even there. He looked quicker. I was excited. Are we going to have like an H-back role kind of with A.J. Dillon this year? Add a little bit more, versatility or different element to within this offense. So it sucks. It sucks that A.J. Dillon's season's over with before it even started and potentially his Packers career. The mayor of Door County. I mean, for crying out loud, you can say what you want about the last couple of years performance-wise. Yeah, they weren't up to that level that we all thought and he thought and the team thought. After having a solid or very good second year, it's like, all right, year 3, here we go. I didn't really get up there. Year 4, here we go. No. So, yeah, definitely it was a little disappointing production-wise, numbers-wise, but other than that, I mean, A.J. Dillon was easily a fan favorite, and from all accounts, a guy that everybody on that team, especially the coaches, I mean, Matt LaFleur was just raving about him heading into this camp and throughout camp and such before that injury. Obviously, a very good friend of Jordan Love's, too. So it stinks that we're not going to see 28 out there on the field. And I was just, I really believe if he would have stayed healthy, if he could have been healthy, that could have been a different element within this offense. I mean, we were seeing it in a practice with him and Jacobs lined up in the backfield at the same time. stings. But one thing I want to point out, and again, this is just my opinion, but yesterday we saw Brian Gutekunst release two guys that were entering their second years, two draft picks that were entering their second years. Sean Clifford and Anders Carlson. I think at times Goody has been labeled as a first of all, yes, he is a Ted Thompson disciple, but I think he has at times been unfairly labeled that he does everything just like Ted Thompson. Like, I think it's fair to say, and I think it's accurate to say Ted Thompson at times would hold on to his draft picks maybe a little too long. You know, guys that he drafted, if it wasn't working out, maybe he held on to them just a little bit too long because that was his draft pick. So they got the benefit of the doubt. And I think that at times Goody has been unfairly compared to that. And, you know, you could look at a guy like a Royce Newman and be like, well, look what it was Royce Newman. Yeah, that's a great example, and I won't argue with that. But I look at what some of the moves he made yesterday, where Sean Clifford was a mid-round pick, gone. Anders Carlson heading into his second year was a pick, gone. To me, what that kind of told me, though, too, and I get it, it's a backup quarterback, and kicker's a little bit more important right now. Green Bay ain't messing around. They ain't messing around. They're not screwing around. And I think they've kind of set this level that you either perform at a high level or you're out. And we could look at the last couple of years too, and there's examples of Goody showing that, okay, you're a draft pick, but after a year, after a couple of years, if you haven't shown us something that there's improvement there or there's something there that you could play at a high level, you're out. J.K. Scott, out after what, a year or two? So there's plenty. In fact, more examples of Goody not holding on to his draft picks if they're not playing well after a year, after a couple of years. That they don't necessarily get the benefit of the doubt after a couple of years. First year, yeah. I think in the first year, you want to see these guys have a chance. You use your draft picks on them. You want to see them in their first year. But after that, you don't start to see that improvement. You don't start to see them, performing at a high level. You're out. Next man up. And I think part of that is, too, that they really believe, and rightfully so. We all believe it, too. A lot of us believe it. A lot of national people believe it. This is a team with Super Bowl goals, Super Bowl aspirations, Super Bowl talent. They're in a tough division. They know what's at stake. So it's not like we're going to make everybody happy. We're going to keep the guys that we drafted and such and roll with that. It's the top 53. We talk about Matt LaFleur saying the five best will play on the offensive line, right? The five best will play. And I think when you look at some of the moves that Goody has made, it's the 53 best. It's the 53 best. It's the players that they believe that will put them in a position to succeed. And if you're not playing at that level, we're going to move on from you. We're going to bring in somebody else that we think is better or can play at a better level. Or maybe they have a higher ceiling. The Malik Willis move over there. If this was Ted Thompson running this thing, and I'm not trying to degrade Ted Thompson or anything like that, because the guy made a lot of really good decisions, some questionable decisions, no doubt about it. But I think it's fair to say there was at times where it's like, okay, maybe a little bit more benefit of the doubt towards draft picks, maybe holding on to them a little bit too long or a year too long. It was interesting, because at veterans, it'd be like he was a guy that would move on from a veteran a year too early instead of a year too late. But draft picks, if you were a draft pick, maybe it was a year too late instead of a year too early. Not messing around with this team, though. And, it's disappointing because I think Sean Clifford, and I know we bring it up and I've brought it up, there was fans last year that wanted Sean Clifford starting games over Jordan Love. And I think that's because we saw some stuff last year from Clifford. It's like, ooh, okay, guy's got some arm, a little bit of gunslinger mentality, right? Because a lot of times when we get backup quarterbacks or rookie quarterbacks, maybe a little passive. They don't want to be a big risk taker, trying to make a good impression. Didn't really get that from Clifford. It's like, okay, throws the interception, he's back out there, let's go. And I think that resonated with a lot of Packers fans. And there was some stuff to like. So it's disappointing to not see a year two jump. It's disappointing to not see improvement. Was there a little bit of regression? All right, your thoughts. Hit us up on with a quick text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line 715-830-1912. Quick break. We'll be back with more to finish up the first hour. Back with your comments too after these quick words. Hunting season is approaching, so if you're not ready for the upcoming hunting season, you better start to think about it because it's coming up quick, baby. Whether it's for some fall turkey hunting or maybe some waterfowl, or maybe you're just kind of eyeing up the November deer season, you want to make sure you go ahead and visit our good friends at Tilden Gun. Tilden Gun. Sean and Hunter will help you get set for your hunting season. If you got a certain firearm maybe you're looking for, they'll help you find that at the best price. They have fantastic customer service over there. And if you haven't checked out the shop, seriously, it's like a sweet man cave in there too. I don't know who decorated that, whether it was Sean or Hunter, but they did a fantastic job over there too. So, but you can also visit their website, tildengun.com. Super easy to navigate and order from over there too. I've done that with Hudson's and such. So, but again, if you got to start to get, if you haven't been thinking about hunting season and such, and I know some of the temperatures, especially in the last couple days, hasn't really been, getting you probably in the hunting mood, but it is coming up. Calendar tells us that. So again, you can visit tildengun.com or check them out 12427 98th Avenue, Chippewa Falls. Let's go through a few messages from you, shall we? G-Man a little bit earlier said DK Brewers fine. Crew win tonight, and the Pack made the right players for the green and gold to win. And the Pack are on track to win the division this year. Go, Pack, go. C-Bomb says, seriously question Joseph. Yeah, maybe moving on from Carlson is needed, but Minnesota didn't want Joseph in a dome. Why would we think he'll be okay at Lambeau in December? Wait until we need a 55-yarder in January at Lambeau, and Joseph barely gets it to the goal line. Kickers don't matter until the game is on the line, and they can't boom one. We've got Jones. This is from Jeremy Jones. Being cut was a surprise to me. They put 3 years into him for nothing. So I'm not sure. Clifford's stint in the Dallas playoff game left a lot to be desired. Sean Clifford? I'm not quite sure where that text is referring to there, but yeah, back to Jones, Caleb Jones there. I mean, if you haven't seen that guy in person, I mean, that dude is a beast. That is a mammoth. And yeah, they invested a lot of time in him, a couple of years worth, but maybe they just thought he kind of reached his peak, that he reached the max and wasn't good enough to make the roster. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, that'd be a surprise probably for some people out there. Dude was huge. I remember walking by him a couple years ago at training camp. I mean, he just towered over everybody else out there too. So keep your thoughts coming. All right, hit me up with the text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line 715-830-1912. We'll definitely get back to some more Packers chats. I'll keep you posted if anything does happen to pop up in terms of anything else with the roster. I feel like we're going to know more this afternoon in terms of maybe some waivers and that, but I think I would feel better. And somebody could tell me if I'm off on this, but I think with the kicking situation, I think I'd feel a lot better if they make a trade for somebody. Now I don't know who. I don't know who they could go out there and acquire. Realistic trade. I mean, it's not like the Ravens are going to give up Justin Tucker, right? Of course, I think we would all love Justin Tucker kicking at Lambeau Field. Seabout talked about the length. Of course, we would love Justin Tucker or somebody like that, or whoever. So realistic trade, I'm not quite sure who would be out there. And I know like the Patriots waived their kicker and such, but I if we did like a receiver defer, I might defer that Joseph is going to finish the season off as the kicker for the Packers. Maybe he begins the season, but C-Bomb says, do you think they bring Carlson back on the practice squad? Maybe. I thought it was kind of telling though from Ryan Wood, who covers the Packers yesterday when the news broke that Anders had been released. And let me bring up the tweet here quick, because he mentioned in the locker room that Anders kind of knew that maybe his time was over with in Green Bay. Let me it says here, have to wonder what happens if not for pushing that 32-yarder wide right. Just know coming back from that, Anders Carlson seemed to know in the locker room after that. So I don't know if that would factor into it, but I guess I wouldn't be opposed to it. Maybe they thought that Anders would have the most, if they wanted to keep both of them for this year, maybe they thought Anders would be the guy that's most likely to clear waivers over a veteran like Joseph. Maybe, possibly, but definitely going to be something to watch throughout this whole season, right? I don't care who's kicking. If it's one of these two, guys out there, I think a lot of us are going to be holding our breaths and maybe praying to Vince Lombardi and the football guys up there that, the wind is just right and the distance is just right. Maybe we need a little angels in the Lambeau field, on the football field, to help with some of those balls, but I don't know. So, all right, we'll get back to some of that green and gold chat coming up here in just a little bit. So we'll get to some Brewers talk coming up next hour. Christian Yelich speaking to the media before the game, talking about his back procedure and the outlook of his career. So we'll hit that up. Brewers back at it for Game 2 of their series with the Giants. Brewers falling last night 5-4. Willie and Jackson with home runs. Blake Perkins with another highlight gem catch, robbing a home run from him. But Willie, another defensive error for him too. Brewers now just 9 games up. The way I'm saying is just 9 games up over the Cubs. So we'll talk a little baseball coming up in the next hour or two. Plus, we'll get back to more of your texts about the Packers roster from yesterday. We'll finish up with Morgs. Good morning, Morgs.
How's it going, Kasper?
Good. How are you?
I say kickers get no respect, huh? What do you think if I'm going to put you in each sports arena? Well, we'll go 4 biggies. We'll go football, baseball, basketball, and golf.
Okay.
And we're going to go preferred and last position player that you want to be. Okay. So you were suiting up on the football field.
Yeah.
We're going to say preferred position and the last position you'd want to play.
Preferred? No, like
everybody wants to be quarterback,
right.
Those are the obvious. But you personally, if you're going to suit up and go best and worst, bookend those, you're jerseyed up, you got the green and gold on, you're playing your dream job, you're on the sidelines, the crowd's going wild. What are you running out in if you get to first pick where you want to play?
I think I'd want to be a wide out. Although somebody told me one time perspective that they would almost want to be like the punter, because
really?
you get a few $1 million if you're good.
And you're not there full time on the field taking the hits.
But they thought too, like, you can walk down the street and nobody would recognize you. So I guess that kind of factors into if you don't want the attention.
But see, I think there are some players that prefer the opposite side, where you want to walk down the street and everybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
And those are, obviously QB, wide receiver, those big time roles.
The thing is, with a punter, I don't want to be the holder on field goals or kicks or
Why?
like that.
Too much pressure, or just no?
Yeah, I mean, one little slip and it ruins the whole operation.
Okay.
So I don't want to be the Tony Romo from a few years ago where, he drops a snap and then they lose the
Well, clearly
game,
not, because it is a few years ago and you're still hanging on to it.
Well, I mean, they still run that highlight out there. So
low light.
Yeah.
So first and
I do not want to be a kicker.
Okay, so kickers last.
Yeah.
So kickers get no respect. That's that's what everyone always says. But what's your first then?
Wide receiver. I'd like to play a little wide out.
Do a little Sterling Sharp style action.
I don't want to play corner because I'd get burned and embarrassed. So
see, my dad's full on D-line. He played it that way in high school and college, and he's
or
always
safety. I wouldn't mind safety.
Even now, like when we go and watch the Packers games and stuff, he always has a soft spot for the D-line. He always likes to watch that lineup grind because, that's also kind of a lower status.
Right.
Unless you played and you really know what it feels like to be out there.
Yep.
That's not where the glory is.
Right.
But that's where the work is.
Yeah.
Grave digging and whatnot.
Basketball, I'd be a power forward. I don't want to be a center.
Why not?
Because you're the guy that's probably on the poster getting dunked on from some athletic shooting guard or something like that.
So you don't want to be made look bad as somebody that's going over you and
power forward, you could just kind of sit on the block, maybe shoot some jump shots and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Baseball.
I'd want to be.
Because I think so much of the positions that you would prefer to play, whether or not that's your skill set, but whatever you prefer to play, it's such a personality thing too. And you can kind of tell that when you watch games and people that are at.
Yeah.
So what would you pick for baseball?
I'd probably say right field. I mean, obviously, I'd love to play shortstop, but I don't have that range. So
So you're being realistic. But
realistic.
you would be
Yeah.
dream position shortstop.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do not want to be either probably pitcher.
Too much pressure?
Yeah.
What about catcher? You got to know
I
the
thought
field
about
quick.
catcher. I wouldn't mind that, I think, now because, I mean, the communication's so much different where, I
Okay.
mean, calling pitches and all that sort of stuff. I
Mhm.
wouldn't mind that one. Pitcher, it's like you're guaranteed you're gonna have an elbow injury and surgery and sit out a year and all that.
That
So,
takes a bigger toll on the body than I
yeah.
realized.
Yeah.
That's rough
So,
on the arm.
golf, what would be like? I mean, I would if I actually had people watch me and fairways were lined up, I'd kill somebody. So,
So he
yep,
says.
exactly.
Okay.
Thanks, Morgs.
Anytime.
1 in, 2 more to go. We'll be back. Second hour on this Wednesday morning, making a turn already on this week, the week before Labor Day weekends. Big thanks for tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in from. Hey, speaking of Labor Day weekend, if you're going to be doing some camping or maybe doing a little bit of a trip, right? Especially maybe if school hasn't started yet. If your kiddos start next week and such, and you're doing a last second trip there, make sure you go and get your supplies from Mike's Star Market in Eau Claire. If you got firing up the grills, maybe for some backyard barbecuing on this Labor Day weekend, go check out their lineups of different flavored brats, or maybe some steaks or some burgers or whatever the case may be. Go visit our good friends at Mike's Star Market. Also, too, for the pups, we picked up some freeze-dried puppy treats over there too for the dogs. Our dog loves it. Freeze-dried liver. Yeah, good. Sounds good for the dogs though. So, but yeah, we got to load up for some. We loaded up heading over to Green Bay Saturday with some snack sticks and such over there too. So makes perfect road trip snacks. We're gonna get back to some football talk coming up a little bit later on, but let me know what your thoughts are on the initial 53-man player roster. You can hit us up with a text on that texting line, or hit us up on social media. So we'll get back to football talk. We got some baseball talk coming up here. Brewers back at it last night, but falling to the Giants. Brewers had the lead in the bottom of the sixth thanks to a 2-run shot from Willie Adames, but giving it right back. Willie Adames, another defensive error from him last night in the top of the seventh, and the Giants were able to hold on to victory to get the 5-4 victory. Brewers up 9 over the Cubs for first place in the division. You had Blake Perkins with another web gem catch, robbing a home run last night. Jackson Churio, it's a good thing they gave him a big contract because, well, on his home run, he took out a piece of the new scoreboard over there. You can see the big old black square over there. But Jackson Churio adding another home run to his already impressive rookie season. Taking a look at the race to the finish here, AL Central is definitely getting a little bit more interesting now. You got Cleveland and Kansas City both tied up. Kansas City taking advantage of this series against the Cleveland Guardians, and they have won their last 3, so they are now tied up 75 and 58. Twins, they've dropped their last couple games against the Braves here. They're just 2.5 back, though, from first place. Seattle, 3.5 back from Houston in the AL West. That battle between New York and Baltimore, still tight. Baltimore just 1 game back. And you compare it to some of the races in the National League here. Philadelphia is up 6 games over Atlanta. Milwaukee, 9 games over the Cubs. Dodgers, up 3 over the Diamondbacks and the San Diego Padres. But when we look at the American League, things are definitely getting really interesting and pretty darn tight over there. It seems like, Luke, that we at least have a good idea of who the wild card teams are going to be, because or the playoff teams are going to be, because when you look at the wild card chase, Minnesota's holding on to that final wild card spot, and Boston's just 4 back, although the Tigers now are 8-2 in their last 10, and they've won 5 in a row, and they're now 5.5 back. But there's a little bit of a distance between the two. So it seems like we have a decent picture of who the playoff teams are going to be. There's just a lot of uncertainty who's going to win the divisions right now.
Yeah, especially, I mean, the Kansas City's run here has been remarkable. I figured they were going to tail off once they started to play higher quality opponents because they hadn't had as much of that success early in the season. And thus far, that's not happened. Now there's still more season to go. And when you play Cleveland, that's perfect because every Cleveland loss automatically is a Kansas City win by definition. And that AL East race, it's a constant trade-off there. Houston settled back down to earth a little bit, but yeah, I think we know who everyone is going to be. You're right. I mean, Minnesota's not looked good of late. I mean, it would help that they would actually have their big 3 playing at the same time, but that will never, ever, ever happen because, injury rules.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, and so there's been some stupid play on that team too, some bad errors and such of late. So they've been pretty cool lately. But no one's grabbing it. Like Detroit, I think, is too far back.
Mm-hmm.
They're 5.5 back, and that could be overcome. It's possible. Doubtful, though. So, it really is the division titles, and it's like I still think Cleveland holds on in the Central. Ultimately, I think Kansas City's going to have too much schedule issues down the road. Houston's going to win the West. Seattle's offense is that's not going to lead to them coming back on a way more talented Astros team. But that American League East race, oh boy, that could come down to almost the last game of the season.
We've been talking a lot, obviously, in the last few months about managers of the year and that. And for the National League, I think, it's Pat Murphy. For the longest time, we thought maybe it was going to be Stephen Vogt from Cleveland. Do you think, though, it's going to be whoever wins the AL Central between Kansas City and Cleveland is probably going to be manager of the year? Or is it still Stephen Vogt, regardless?
I don't think it's Vogt. I'm still thinking, of course, it is. I'm looking up something here. Our Apple, the Apple IIe with the green screen over here goes super slow, so I can't even get my information here. But the Royals manager, I think, Scott, I think I saw, what was he, the betting odds favorite fairly recently to win? Quatraro, sorry. See, now here's where I would make the Stephen Vogt argument. You don't have a Bobby Wood Jr. on Cleveland that is extremely valuable to the success of that team. There's a lot spread out. I mean, of course, Jose Ramirez, Stephen Kwan, etc. But they don't have a potential long-term MVP, someone who could win it this year. Probably won't. I think Aaron Judge is going to end up taking it.
I'd hope so.
Short of. Well, and then it comes back to the big market versus small market debate. Like, yeah, Aaron Judge could get it, but you're playing for the Yankees. Come on.
But I will say this, and I understand that, and I've used that argument before, but what he's doing and what Ohtani's doing too is, Ohtani might be the 50-50, right. I get that. I'm like, okay, that's pretty special. And then what Aaron Judge is doing too, it's like, okay, I get it.
Right.
So
I mean, it's and also the big market argument about Judge and playing for a team like the Yankees that have like the best resources in baseball. Well, I don't think that holds as much water this year, given that when Aaron Judge is not playing or outside of Aaron Judge, that's a mediocre team. I think he actually is that valuable to the Yankees of all teams. So to turn that back over to manager of the year, I think Vogt has had to work
with less.
A little bit. I mean, there was a fair amount of talent there because, under Francona, the Guardians were pretty good last year and pretty good with a lot of okay talent, some good talent. Quatraro, oddly, with one of the least resourceful teams in baseball, has a superstar that's doing so much. So that might take a little bit away from him. Of course, the argument for Quatraro will be, once again, hey, you brought the Royals to a division championship. It's the same thing. It's the small market, not really big market thing, because Cleveland's not a big market. But if I were to vote, I would vote, but
vote for Vogt,
pretty much. Yeah. But I would understand if Quatraro gets it. There's a lot more to the team also than Bobby Wood Jr. It's not quite as black and white as, if he's out of the game, the Royals are on pace to be worse than the White Sox. Not like that.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's gotten closer though, right? I mean, just from 2 months ago in that race. Still, in my opinion, wide open. I think Pat Murphy is the clear-cut leader in the National League. So.
I don't know who else is getting it, to be honest. Because, hey, those second place Cubs.
I knew you were going to bring this up at some point. So,
look, they are 2.5 games closer than a week ago. On this pace, just saying, nothing's going to happen because they're not going to catch the Brewers. But could you make a case for Mike Schilt?
I think maybe, considering that, last year, Bud Black was over there. And then, they didn't live up to those expectations. And I think, you could make a case for that. But at the same time, look at their roster compared to the guys on the Brewers too.
Right.
I think you have to use that factor, the argument or the discussion you were just having about, Rogers. That look at the Padres.
Mhm.
They're supposed to be pretty decent. They're
Right.
supposed to be better than the Brewers, right?
Well, and they're
Talent-wise.
getting their guys back, more and more coming back, more and more coming back. So that is a very talented, it's a very talented team.
Mhm.
So Schilt is really more managing versus, I guess, coaching, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I mean, right now, Murphy is a runaway favorite, and I honestly, the one way I think Murphy loses it is if the Brewers, I'm going to go there. The Brewers have to collapse, and Craig Counsell has to do an incredible job stewarding the Cubs to a division title. In that circumstance, and even then, I think maybe the Brewers would, Murphy still probably would hold on because of the totality of the season. But you'd have to have something to that degree, like, wow, Counsell with another incredible move, plus all the Counsell to the Cubs stuff that people still remember. That might be enough. But the odds of that are like 1%.
Right.
So, well, I mean, there you go. We'll take a look at the playoff odds. 98.7% for the Brewers getting in. So basically, it is a 1% odds that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Murphy's got this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. So let's take a quick break and then we'll get back. Or we'll talk about the Brewers and we'll throw some Twins conversation in there. 2 Twins dropping the last couple of games against the Braves. Here, Brewers dropping their first game of this 3-game series against the Giants as we start to wrap up the final week of August and look ahead to the final month of the regular season. So, quick break and we'll get back to some more baseball talk coming up after these quick words. Next Friday, we're going to be posted up at Hy-Vee doing the show from there. Hopefully the weather's nice so we can be outside for our little tailgate show out there to kick off the Green Bay football season later on that night, as Green Bay will be taking on the Eagles of Philadelphia. But we've got some sweet stuff. We're working on some sweet stuff with Hy-Vee for that day. So here you go, Luke. You might want to drop by for some breakfast because they're going to have some stuff out there, including some sandwiches, breakfast nachos potentially, quesadillas, breakfast quesadillas. I know you're a foodie, man.
I am.
So you might have to stop by, even though it might be a little green and gold on there.
That's okay. I'll eat.
Yeah. Also 30% off sports shop. You got some Man Cave Light specials over there too. A bunch of other specials. I know you got a sweet tooth.
Of course.
Packer 12-inch cookie over there. So you might have
I'll
to
eat it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll eat it. So also some giveaways that's going to be going on as well. So I mean a bunch of different stuff. I'm looking at this whole list here. It'd probably take up 10 minutes to go through everything on here. So easiest thing to do is to make sure you stop by 6A to 9A next Friday for our show and check out some of the deals at Hy-Vee. And just drive by too and give a little beep for a little Go Pack Go out there. So
I'm not going to do that.
Well, I mean, we're not playing your team, so
I know. Oh, that is true. That is true.
Yeah. So you don't like the Eagles, right?
Yeah,
NFC
they did get pretty
championship,
annoying.
so-
Okay, well, thanks for reminding me why I don't like the Eagles. Their
welcome.
fan base is the one that still rips on the Skull chant. I'm like, why? Get over it. You beat us. Why are you still like? Come on. At least you know what? Packers fans don't get that. There's a word I'd like to say, but I'm not sure if it's acceptable to say on the radio. They're not that way. I'll put it very vanilla.
All right.
Okay, so thank you for reminding me. Go Pack, go. Beat the Eagles.
I will say one thing about to not rehash it that you guys shouldn't have done, and I think you know what you shouldn't have done.
I think I remember, but remind me.
Don't mess with the Rocky statue.
Yep, bad idea.
Don't mess with the Rocky statue. I will even say that to Packers. Don't mess with the Rocky statue in Philly. It doesn't bode well when you do stuff like that.
Thankfully, this one is not in Philadelphia, so
Yeah.
it reduces the chance of a dorky Packers fan being like, hey, check it out.
Was it that year though that like opposing teams were doing it and it was like a guaranteed loss? It was some weird thing like that.
I don't remember that, but wow.
There was just like I think it was even like that leading up to that Super Bowl. Didn't a Patriot Patriots fan put a jersey on Rocky or something like that? And we know what happened. I'd have to double check that, but there was some weird things like, oh yeah, somebody messed with the Rocky statue again. You lost, guaranteed. So
I would like to think we've collectively learned as an NFL fandom society to not mess with Philadelphia fans. They tend to be they are going to react the worst. I mean, not everyone. I'm not broad brushing literally every Philadelphia Eagles fan. Of course, the vast majority are totally fine, but they have a greater proportion of people that are going to have just like the most annoying, potentially dangerous reaction compared to, I think, any other fan base.
right.
Can you think of another one that's going to be worse than that?
Give me a couple minutes on there.
Yeah.
Worse than an Eagles fan base. I know we got some Philly fans, so I don't want to all lump them in there. So.
Like the ones who act poorly, there's a greater proportion of them because again, every fan base, are there really poorly acting Jacksonville Jaguars fans? I guess there's a handful.
I think there's also you got to factor in: do they even really have a legit rival as like a Packer Viking rivalry? So you factor that in, like, ooh, you just can't stand that. Also, I feel like your team has to have some sort of success.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you have to have won some things for them to be that's because for a lot of time people didn't like Patriots fans. Did you know a Patriots fan? No, you probably didn't because they just won a lot and you were annoyed by it.
Right.
So
and the handful of people that I know who are Patriots fans were like just like normal. Or they have like roots in New England and they're like, yeah, I'm a Patriots fan. Okay. They didn't act jerky about it. But then again, like I said, Eagles fans have known aren't jerky either. Like pretty much none have been. Like I said, the the percentage that's going to be that way is really small, and it's usually fueled by alcohol in a stadium, or because you get behind your keyboard and you can do an anonymous thing on Twitter.
Keyboard warriors.
Totally,
right?
a lot.
Do we
of
still
that.
call it keyboard warriors? Even
Yeah, I
though
heard that the other day. So
I know, like that, but should we still call it? Because it's like now it should be like phone. I mean, you don't really have a keyboard on your phone.
Oh, you do.
Touch
You're
screen warriors.
you're tapping your you're tapping your screen keyboard. So it's yeah.
Touchscreen warriors. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that doesn't have quite the same
Keyboards. I
ring.
feel like are going off to the wayside now. I remember when it was cool when your phone had a full-on legit keyboard on there.
Gosh.
Blackberries and Palm Pilots and all that.
They're like the cherry phones or whatever, chocolate phones, whatever.
Had to
those
bust out the pen on your phone too. Oh, I remember when. Yeah, I remember when those came out. I got a lot of crap from my buddies about, oh, you got a pen with your phone. So I was like, I thought it was cool, but apparently I wasn't. So
nope,
not at all. All right, back to some baseball talk coming up here. So the Brewers back at it tonight. Yeah, Freddie Peralta on the mound going up against, and I was kind of saying this too with the Giants. I mean, they're 4-5 back from wild card spot. This is a huge series for the Giants to try to make that final push to get back into a wild card conversation here with the Brewers and such too. But yeah, Freddie Peralta on the mound tonight for the Brewers. So first pitch, 7:10. Brewers are going to be going up against a left-handed pitcher tonight. So we know what that means. That's always kind of been a narrative surrounding this team and going up against left-handed pitching. So we'll see if they can continue to push against that narrative. But Harrison's on the mound for the Giants, 7-5 with a 4.0 ERA so far this season. Before the game yesterday, though, too, Christian Yelich was back, and he talked a little bit with the media beforehand because he kind of, I don't know if this was on purpose, but, a lot of speculation out there when you hear back injuries, back surgeries, there's a question about your career, the future of your career. He said, quote, I think everybody sees back surgery and they think, oh, that's the end of your career. But in my mind, that couldn't be any further from the truth. I think that it's going to help me tremendously. I think I'll feel a lot better than I have the last few years. In that sense, it's cool. It's a really nice thing. The only thing that's really not great about this is the timing aspect of this and not being able to finish the season. To take part in what is hopefully another postseason run, that's unfortunate because it's a really fun team to be a part of. How concerned should Brewers fans still be about Christian Yelich's longevity with this team, do you think?
So I'm scrolling through ESPN's, well, actually the AP story. It's at the ESPN app. The AP story on Yelich. The thing that jumped out to me, 32.
The age, yeah.
Like, gosh, I forgot he's that old. I mean,
30. Say 32 now. I'm at that point in my age when you say 32 is old, so it's like,
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you that thing you sort of cross over those certain age points. You're like, wow. So my equivalent in sports would be, oh, this guy, and then eventually you get to the point you're like right now I'm in George Blanda territory, which George Blanda felt like he was 80 years old when he was playing. He looked like he was 80 years old. He's my age when he was in his latter days in the NFL. Let's also remember, though I haven't heard this stat as much of late, I don't know if this has changed. Maybe analytics has kind of weeded out the players. But remember how the offensive baseball cliff was right around age 31, I think?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a magic number. Well, he's at the cliff. He's technically over the cliff in an age sense. Now, in a performance sense, that matched not at all with how he performed this year. I think Brewers fans should be very thankful that the National League has the designated hitter option, because otherwise, I think this would be a problem contract going forward if you had to play a position. You're not going to be able to get much for him unless you're going to an American League team. If you're going to, under those circumstances, that's not a factor anymore. So it's not great, but it could be worse if this were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, for sure.
That's a good point about the National, because I think that almost goes back to, I'm getting flashbacks of the end of the Ryan Braun era, where it was like, too bad the National League, or like when there was talks about trading Ryan Braun, would he go to a team that had the DH? Remember those conversations a few years ago? And so it's just giving me flashbacks of that whole Ryan Braun conversation over there. And I agree with you. I think you're right. I think it's a good thing for the Brewers right now that they have that DH option, because you've got some young outfielders you want to get playing. That's maybe the one benefit of this whole, and I don't want to come off saying they're better without Christian Yelich, because I mean the dude was an all-star this year and he was having a fantastic season. So I'm not saying they're better off, but if there's one positive in this, I think we're seeing the emergence of Jackson Chourio, right? I mean, he's having for me, surpassing his expectations for his rookie year. He's getting more comfortable out there. I think he's comfortable in left field, and that's his spot, which happens to be Christian Yelich's. Garrett Mitchell's kind of getting some time, center and right field. You got Sal Frelick mostly over there at right field. You're getting an extended look with your young outfielders. You're getting a better look and seeing what you have with these guys instead of kind of that little bit of an unknown factor yet. So that's probably the biggest benefit of this, other than the fact that they're still winning without Christian Yelich too.
You're not forced to delay the future. Which is that, and I'm picturing that outfield right now when I was sitting in that game earlier this month, and there it was. Right below me was Frelick. A little further on was Mitchell. A little further on was Chourio. Young players galore down on that field. They played that game fine. Now, granted, Myers was making sure not a lot of balls got anywhere close to them, but that's good experience in a defensive sense, in a chemistry sense, which you wouldn't have if Yelich had to. I mean, if it ever had gotten to that point of like, oh gosh, well, he's got to take one of these spots right there. And again, I remember all the back and forth of where is Braun going to play over here, and is he sucking up space and energy over this? The counter to this would be we'd be getting pretty close to, you think next year the Brewers might want to trade him to the Mariners because they need some offense? We totally would be hearing that, and it's off the radar right now. They're going to have more luxury, even with a really huge contract, but he's probably going to have more injuries going down the road. Take it from a fan of a team that has injury-prone players galore.
Yeah,
it's going to be a thing. It sucks. The players hate it because I think in most cases they're not doing anything to exacerbate these injuries, unless I think the closest you could say to a player that puts themselves in a position, maybe, but I don't know enough about the human body to say, and someone like a Dr. Crow, someone would be able to tell better. But I wonder if someone gets their muscles so firm, so tight that they set themselves up to snap them. Like, I think there was a case that Royce Lewis might have done just that. Like, he got his body in such great shape that, no wonder you pulled a hamstring or something like that. Like, he has to actually back off a little bit on that. Again, I could be totally wrong, but I heard a little bit of that, or read a little bit of that speculation.
I've instantly got that image of that guy that spends so much work in the weight room, all upper body, and then he's like twigs for legs.
Yep. Something like that, where you're throwing your body off in some capacity because you built yourself up so strongly. I'm not 100% sure that is the case with Royce Lewis, but I don't think that's the case with Christian Yelich at all. It may just be to use the area analogy, it may be more of a Byron Buxton sort of situation where the body, he just happened to be blessed with a body. I'm not saying this sarcastically, that also happens to be a little bit more prone to athletic injuries. It happens, and it sucks, but that's what you got to deal with. And that's what it's going to be. But the upside is, like in Buxton's case, when you do have him, and you will have him for a while, it's going to be really good when he's around. So it's up to the rest of the team to to perform well. It's up to management to get other players around so you're not dependent on Christian Yelich for the next few years.
Yeah. Okay. So again, the Brewers, they're going to be going up against Kyle Harrison tonight. He's coming off of a win against the White Sox back in the 19th, 6 innings, 1 earned run. If we're kind of taking a look at what he has done in the month of August, 1-1 with a 5.59 ERA. A lot of that goes back to his game against Cincinnati on the 3rd, where he gave up 4 home runs in that game. He gave up a couple runs against Atlanta on August 13th. The other 2 games, Washington and White Sox, no earned runs. July in 4 games, he's pretty darn solid, 2-1 in 4 games, started with a 2.66 ERA. But again, the other pitcher on this one is Freddie Peralta, who I think Brewers fans are still waiting to see him take that next step, and we haven't really seen it. And I think, I mean, we're at that point now. It's like, okay, we've seen enough of a sample size so far with Freddie Peralta. We kind of know what to expect from him. Or should we expect more still?
I think
or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, that's the right answer. You know he's capable of doing more. But he is who he is this season. I mean, I guess you could get hotter at this point, but you're really hoping to manage your way through the games.
Mm-hmm.
He could be way worse. But if you're hoping for a repeat of a few years ago when he was
an all-star.
Yeah, in the Peralta, Burns, Woodruff triumvirate of really excellent, historically excellent pitching. I don't know that that's going to necessarily happen again. I mean, was he the biggest surprise of that season? And I'd say that knowing that Corbin Burns at that point had been not that long removed from potentially being a complete bust.
I think that's fair to say, just to refresh people's minds, because if you remember going into spring training and at the end, he kind of like won the 5th job in that rotation. You know, he was in a fight for a starting pitching spot in that spring training, and he got that 5th spot, and then he just kind of used that momentum into the regular season, made the All-Star team. Ironically, he made the All-Star team though because Brandon Woodruff couldn't play in that one. I think it was because he made a start, so it wasn't able to get enough rest, and then opened up a spot for his teammate Freddie Peralta. But you can make the argument that he deserved an All-Star spot to begin with. So I think it's fair to say that, because we didn't really know what to expect. Was he going to be a bullpen guy, or was he going to be a starter? And he won that 5th spot right at the end and took off that season.
Mm-hmm. So that's not what we should always expect from Freddie Peralta. By the way, and maybe you've said this before, but it seemed like that Corbin Burns trade is looking better and better for the Brewers, given that Corbin Burns' strikeout rate year by year keeps going down.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. I hear a lot of Orioles talk on the Baseball Tonight podcast because their producer is a diehard Orioles fan, so that constantly comes up. That was mentioned the other day, like, Burns, he's been trending downward for a while. Like, of course, me living up here in Wisconsin, like, oh, really? Okay. I mean, I'm sure I could just look it up on Baseball Reference and you get the answer anytime I want. But a reminder that maybe Matt Arnold knew what he was doing. Not that we were thinking he didn't when he made the trade. It seemed like more of a, we're kind of surrendering the season kind of move when it happened. But in retrospect, I think that's the right move to go. Is
it possible though too? I think it's one of those we'll know in the next couple of years. Might just easily be a win-win for both teams, right? If Baltimore wins the World Series this year, that's a win for them, right? But in a couple of years, if Joey Ortiz and DL Hall work out, it's a win-win.
Right. That's the usual rule of sports, period. If your acquisition ultimately is followed by a championship, you have succeeded. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless there's some way you can say it's very much in spite of, like I've been thinking that with the Wolves, like if somehow they win the NBA title in the next couple of years, the Rudy Gobert trade was a success. Mm-hmm. Just think of what I just said there, given that was derided as maybe one of the worst trades in professional sports history. But that's a possibility. Same here for both of those. I mean, I guess if Burns got injured and the Orioles went on to win, could you really say it was?
Then that's another element to that. So,
but you could say that about any player too. I mean, then we're getting into Ewing theory territory here, and that's like 3D chess almost.
Can we almost change it to maybe like the Ronald Acuna theory too? Remember when they won? I mean, they didn't have
baseball.
Him. Yeah,
it kind of was. Well, hey,
but then you look at this year too. So
well, hang on. Yeah, see, look what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Ronald Acuna Jr.'s out, and granted, the Braves have actually also been playing pretty terribly since then. But if you look at the past few games, okay, well, let's look for a larger sample size.
Right.
2 good games against a poorly playing Twins team.
Right.
Right now, anyway.
So, All right. I tell you what, let's take a quick break here. We'll finish up the second hour. Coming up in the next hour, we got a little business of sports. I want to talk a little bit about the NFL approving now. Kind of, we'll do our best in terms of the world of business to explain this, but the owners approving the equity 10% up to an 10% equity ownership with that. I'm sure you heard about that.
Oh yeah.
The private equity stuff over there. In fact, Andrew Brandt's apparently on News Nation talking about it right now. So,
Oh, this is super up his alley.
oh yeah, absolutely. So that'll be coming up in our business of sports next hour. But we're gonna take a quick break and we'll finish up this first hour. Maybe come on, once in a while this touchscreen works over here. So, but we'll take a quick break and be back after these quick words. Is it time for you to maybe update some of the flooring in your home space, or maybe in your office at work or something like that? Well, if it is, look no further than Wisconsin's premier flooring store, Carpet City Flooring Center, right here in Eau Claire. From all the top styles in carpet to luxury vinyl planks like Rigid Max flooring over there. Carpet City Flooring Center has all the styles and options you could hope for in the flooring game, all at the best price too, because if you happen to find a better deal elsewhere, they will match or beat the competition. But what sets Carpet City Flooring Center apart from the rest is the customer service, the family like feel every time you stop in and work with the entire team at Carpet City Flooring Center. So if you're in need of updating your flooring game, go give a visit to our good friends at Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire. We got about 10 minutes to a little less than 10 minutes to the top of the hour here. So for your Vikes, were there any surprise cuts yesterday for your team, or
Not really. I mean, Nwangwu being cut, given how great he was on returns a couple years ago, I guess a little bit. I forgot that Dwayne McBride found his way back. Remember
Yeah.
a year plus ago, we're like, whomever gets him, because it was thought to be like the steal, and then he got cut.
Yep.
Made his way back and got cut again. I haven't seen all who made practice squads too, so there was a little bit of filtering as I'm seeing the list. Like, well, yeah, but some of these guys are not.
And we'll know this after, because the waivers,
Right.
teams get to put claims, and then we'll find that out in a few hours. So
I'm a little hesitant to write some eulogies on these players, because we might find ourselves in week 5 going, wow, they're back. Lewis Seen is the headline.
yeah, I was just gonna bring that one up.
Yeah,
So
which that we saw coming for a very years almost, which he was drafted 2 years ago. But being a healthy scratch for a fair amount of the 2023 season was a bad sign. But he was recovering from one of the worst injuries you're going to find on a football field. That's going to really inhibit your ability to be an effective defensive back at a level of high caliber like you get at the NFL. That sucks for him. And you have other players that got better than him. And it's going to go down as one of the, not the worst, but one of the worst Vikings draft picks. Was reminded this,
and you hate saying that too, because you do wonder how much is affected by that injury, which I think is a lot.
That's the thing.
So,
but a lot of it is you never know that, because you see how so many players are drafted so high. We've talked about this before. You don't put too much stock in the draft, because half those players are going to turn into not a whole heck of a lot within a handful of years. We just saw it west of the border, but that injury, I'm sure, had a big impact on that, to the point where he couldn't even be traded. He was waived. Not the worst pick. I was reminded this morning of Demetrius Underwood. Do you remember Demetrius Underwood?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, that got weird. I know, and we laugh about it now, but at the time you're like, what the bleep is going on here? That was a strange circumstance. But here, it was really unfortunate. And it happens in football. It happens in sports. Bad injury luck happens, and it really happened to Cena, and that's probably what took down the ceiling on his career. So it sucks, but that's how it goes in the NFL.
Yep, absolutely.
Any shockers on the Packers end?
There was a couple that surprised me a little bit here. Kalen King getting cut, I think surprised me. I think they're hoping that he's going to be back on the practice squad. Anthony Johnson Jr. Was a little bit of a surprise for me too, that they picked Zane Anderson over him, but I think that's more of a special teams type of play over there. It stinks about the AJ Dillon one, because now you have to wonder career-wise for him. Yeah. And I know we talked to Dr. Crow about it. Was it last week or the week before about that too? And your mind starts to wonder, and you start to wonder, are we going to see him on any field at all? The fact I don't think we've settled on the kicker situation yet. Anders out, Greg Joseph right now in. I was looking at other kickers who were cut to see if there could be any waiver claims on any of these guys. I will just say, from the ones that I saw that were released yesterday, not a whole lot. The only option would potentially maybe be, and this was a guy who was actually cut a few days ago, Riley Patterson. Started off with the Lions back in 2021, played in Jacksonville in 2022. He was 85.7%. Then back to Detroit, where he played 13 games, 88.2%. Cleveland for a game last year. I was reading too, there is not a big difference, but there's a slight difference of his numbers indoors and outdoors, which I think you have to factor in for Lambeau. His numbers are better indoors, which I'm sure I think if you did a sample size and compared it to a lot of kickers, probably a lot of kickers are like that. But he struggled a little bit in preseason with Washington. That's who he was with, and they ended up cutting him. So I mean, that honestly is like the only legit guy that I see that has been cut in the last few days. Otherwise, you're talking about guys that maybe have only played a handful of games or not even any games at this point. So, and the thing is, we could say trade for one, but who you trading for? You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't a realistic trade. You're not getting Justin Tucker. You know, you're not getting Justin Tucker unless you're going to be willing to give up a really high draft pick for a kicker.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that's still going to be enough to do that. So I couldn't even tell you who they should trade for because I don't know what's a realistic thing at this point.
Also, do you, unless he makes the practice squad, do you have to come up with a new Lindsey Pipkins Memorial Player of the Year, given that King is
that was tough, man. I mean, you look at some of those back end guys. It was hard to make the roster apparently this year. You know, and this is one thing I said it a little bit earlier. I know Goody kind of gets labeled as the as a Ted Thompson disciple, full on Ted Thompson disciple, which yes, technically he is. But I will say this: I think he's proven too that the one thing he is not like Ted Thompson. He does not hold on to draft picks just because of the benefit of the doubt that they were his draft picks. I mean, Sean Clifford, gone, and he was a 5th round pick entering his 2nd year. Anders Carlson, another draft pick, gone before even playing his 2nd season. Well, there's other examples of that too. I mean, he did it with J.K. Scott. Maybe the moral there is don't draft specialists. But he's done it with other players over there too. To me, that also tells me like they have and I think a lot of it is the expectations for this team. Super Bowl goals, aspirations, you know, they got a lot of talent. I think it also sends the message: you're not performing, you're out of here, and we're going to bring in somebody who can perform at a better level or higher level.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a Packers fan, that should almost give you a sense of comfort because I feel like for the longest time it was like, oh yeah, Ted's not getting rid of any draft picks. I'm not trying to bury Ted or anything like that. But it was like, okay, if you were drafted by Ted, you were probably making the team. Chances are you were probably making the team, right? And I think if now you look at this like, man, they're letting guys go before they hit their 2nd year, there should be a level of comfort, like, you know that they're trying to put the best 53 out there.
Yeah.
The absolute best roster together.
Oh, the point is to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's the best way to do it. It's how you have to assess your 53-man roster. How close did you come on your roster?
Oh, man, I think I was like 48.
Not bad.
Obviously the quarterback one, well, when you trade for somebody, that threw you off.
Yeah.
I got all the running backs except A.J. Dillon. I did have him keeping Tyler Davis. I didn't do any of the injured reserve ones over there. Otherwise, I got that. I got the defensive lineman except for Aaron Mosby. And I think that was, I mean, he had a game Saturday. Defense tackle got it all right. Inside linebackers, all right. Corners got 4 of the 5. Safeties, 4 of the 5. So,
pretty good. Pretty solid.
But I don't think we're done. I don't think we're done. And again, that's why we keep saying initial, because if the Packers did put, or the Vikings did put a waiver claim on somebody and they're awarded that player, well, they got to release somebody who made the team. That's the sucky part, isn't it?
You've made the team. No, you haven't.
Especially those bottom roster guys. Like, hey, congrats, man. You made the team. You know, you're feeling good. Next day, yeah, sorry, you're cut.
I mean, maybe they go to the practice squad automatically, but quote unquote automatically, but
yeah,
gosh.
It's just like, hey, I made the team. And then, nope, sorry, we already replaced you. Yeah. So, but that's the biz.
Yep.
2 in, 1 more to go. Business and sports coming up next. Final hour kicking off on this Wednesday, the final Wednesday of the month of August. Appreciate you tuning in. Coming up, we'll get back to some more baseball talk. Brewers first pitch tonight, 7:10. You can catch it on the radio dials here, 105.1 FM and 790 AM. So we've got Freddie Peralta on the mound. Brewers trying to get at least a series split, win their first game of this 3 games. And I shouldn't say series split because it's 3 games there, but trying to put themselves in a position to maybe win the series coming up tomorrow before they hit the road for a quick 3 games against Cincinnati. Then they're back at home at the beginning of next week against the Cardinals of St. Louis as we start off that final month of the regular season already. Actually, this Sunday when it's September 1st. So we'll get back some more baseball talk coming up here as well. We'll keep posted if anything happens to come down the news wire for football and such. But probably we'll know more this afternoon after the waiver claims are processed and who's picked up if the Packers put a waiver claim on anybody or anything like that. If you're wondering too why there's some people who are already signed to the practice squad. Remember, veterans with at least 4 years of service don't have to go through the waivers. They can sign up right away wherever. So if you're seeing some people like, well, Sterling Shepard's going to the Bucks or Tim Patrick's going to the line. There's certain veterans with 4 years experience. They don't have to go through the wire process there. So let's do some business of sports this hour. The business of sports, talking some NFL private equity. So I think we might have talked about this a while ago when it was first kind of floated out there. But to give you a little bit of background, the NFL owners yesterday voted in favor of private equity investments. So we're gonna do our best to kind of I'll do the Michael Scott Office reference, explain it to us like we're 5 years old here, okay? So at a special league meeting yesterday, it was actually in Minnesota, Eagan, Minnesota, believe it or not.
Home of the Vikings,
Yeah.
literally their home suburb.
The owners voted in favor of allowing select private equity firms to buy up to a 10% stake of a team. Each fund will be able to do deals with up to 6 teams. The vote passed with support of 31 of 32 franchise owners. Any guess on who voted against it really quick, unless you know it?
Mike Brown?
It was Mike Brown.
He's always the one.
I was surprised you picked Mike Brown. What made you think that anybody that's the Bengals owner over there?
Brown seems to be the closest to a contrarian owner. Not just to be contrarian, but he's like, no, we shouldn't do this. You wonder why the Bengals have been one of the lesser franchises for a long time. I know better of late, but historically not that.
Well, they never invested in practice facilities and all that stuff too, right? I mean, It was like, oh boy. Then they go to the Super Bowl. It's like, dang, now I got to do stuff. So.
Son of a, why do we have to do that? Yeah, that's not surprising at all.
Yeah. So the initial approved firms, in case anybody's wondering, because I'll be honest, I don't know anything. I've never heard of these people. Aries Management, Sixth Street Partners, and Art Goes Partners, in addition to consortium nicknamed the Avengers, that includes Dynasty Equity, Blackstone, Carlyle Group, CVC Capital Partners, and Ludus, a platform funded by investor and former NFL running back Curtis Martin.
My favorite Martin. I've heard of a good number of those when sports business stuff comes up, and sometimes in just general, broader financial news. Those are big names. Yeah, there's a lot of money involved there.
So it was back in July that Roger Goodell said that the league had seen a tremendous interest from private equity. The league did create a committee to look at the possibility. It sounds like Clark Hunt was one of those leaders from Kansas City and such. The NFL is the last major sports league to allow private equity investment and is still treading lightly on the issue by allowing only a select group to participate. The NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, and soccer all allow private equity ownership of up to 30%. Roger Goodell told CNBC back in July that he believes the 10% is a compliment due to the existing ownership structure and that the percentage could be raised at some point in the future. So why is this newsworthy? Why is this a thing? It's because team franchise values are going up, right, Luke? And if a team is on the market to be sold, not a lot of people can afford it. Well, let's use Washington as an example. $6.05 billion, to just straight up buy that. The franchise, that's what the franchise sold to an ownership group that included Josh Harris and 20 other investors. Harris said in June that the process, quote, created a little bit of a wake-up call at the NFL. Unless you're one of the wealthiest 50 people in the world, writing a $5 billion equity check is pretty hard for anyone. So this now will give teams who are considering new or renovated stadiums access to a capital pool they haven't had access to in the past, said Clark Hunt. So prices going up for franchises, prices going up for stadiums. Well, that means lower pool of people, potentially investors and buyers. This is a way to hopefully alleviate that a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. That was part of the deal with the Commanders purchase too, that they had to take on like all these multiple investors that didn't have the strongest wherewithal, like what the NFL would have preferred, but they were so determined. The NFL was so determined to get rid of Snyder. They're like, well, we're just going to allow this anyway. It's not bad, but even if it doesn't hit our ideals, we have to do this. That was a sign pretty clearly. There's not enough money to go around. You're right. So if someone does want to sell, what are you going to do?
Right.
You're stuck. I mean, you'd like to think a lot of these owners would be like, well, my valuation is so big. Why would I want to sell? Well, if you do actually want the billions, okay, there's got to be something else. Otherwise, you can't. What if some owner got in a really difficult financial situation for whatever reason, something else like a personal thing, and now he's going to lose half of his money because of like a marriage or divorce thing. Those sorts of things happen. So what do you do? Well, this is the club, so they're going to be thinking about each other in that regard.
So the other part in this too, because I think we heard this a lot when it was Washington was up for sale. But I mean, the whole Jeff Bezos thing, like Dan Snyder, he didn't want Jeff Bezos to buy the team or something like he didn't want him involved in that.
Yeah.
But like, okay, if you're not going to do this, then you're kind of slim pickings on who can buy it, right? I mean, you might just be left with Jeff Bezos to buy your team.
Right. And I wonder if the NFL is also thinking, if we have another undesirable owner situation, as much as they do look out for each other. So it's a minor miracle that they were able to push out Snyder. But let's just use the two that right now are the most problematic. And I don't think either is to the point. I mean, we could say what we think as fans, but to the point where the owners would want to kick him out. Bidwell and Tepper. If they're like, we really kind of don't want you to be owners anymore. But then they start having demands like, yeah, well, I'm not going to sell to this one. I'm not going to sell. And we know that they're not going to, the owners aren't going to go so far as to force a sale for those guys compared to what Snyder was doing. Then those guys, a rogue owner, a problem owner could be like, hey, I can't sell with anyone. I guess I have to keep the team. Oh, darn.
Right.
And I know you guys aren't going to set the precedent of kicking out somebody. So, I'm in the club. Nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Well, yeah, they just did do something about it.
Right.
So, yeah. That's the way you get around that. And again, if anyone is like, yeah, well, what Bidwell did was terrible. What Tepper, I mean, owners have their definition of morals. I think most of us fans would prefer anyone with sketchy ethics would be gone anyway. But we know how the owners club works. So they found, that's not the primary reason. The primary reason is to sell, you need people that can buy in a broad sense. But this will also help in case someone pulls a Dan Snyder and goes, yeah, well, this person doesn't fit. This person doesn't fit. And well, okay, now the NFL called the bluff on that.
So, like the example, like this wouldn't happen anytime soon. But let's say it all of a sudden the Dallas Cowboys are up for sale. Well, they're the highest ranked value franchise in the NFL. As of last August 2023, this was a year ago, $10 billion. Who's going to write a check for $10 billion to buy the Cowboys?
And mind you, of course, $9 billion is still going to be, I mean, even with $100 million of private equity money, which, I mean, it's a lot, but.
And that was last year. That value might have gone up in a year.
Right. but also that's still a lot of money anyway, but that might make just enough of a difference that they can find a few people. I mean, no one's going to come up with, I mean, I guess maybe Jeff Bezos could, but you're not going to get too many $9 billion folks, but it's better than 10 if Jerry Jones ever did want to sell. It does increase that possibility.
I feel like the Cowboys would be one of those franchises if for some reason Jerry Jones said, you know what, I'm not handing this team down to my family, which I think we all assume is just going to be a Jones-run organization for a long time, right?
Right.
But let's just say he's like, all of a sudden today, he's like, nope, I'm going to sell it. I feel like the Cowboys would be a franchise that, you know, these rich billionaires who had no interest in owning a team, the Cowboys would be one where it'd be like, yeah, I'd be interested in buying that one. You know, it's because it's more than just a football team.
Right. And you know that the value is likely going to continue to grow. I don't know at what point the values, quote unquote, peak or at least level off. I don't know if you heard the Bill Simmons podcast with Chuck Klosterman. It's like 3 weeks ago now or so. They did one of those, let's like look at the future sort of things. It was actually a really fascinating pod. And again, it's opinionated, so they could be wrong about some stuff. But Klosterman had an interesting theory that this could be 20 to 40 years down the road, but at a certain point, advertising dollars are really going to start to fall in professional sports as the ad money, like the TV media deals continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the networks have to spend more and more money, and advertisers have to spend more and more money to put commercials on these platforms, streaming, broadcast, which probably still will be around more so than cable. At a certain point, don't advertisers go, you know, we can get more bang for the buck not spending gobs of millions of dollars on this. It's better to just go back to a traditional ad campaign doing other stuff besides sports. And that guts a lot of these models. And the NFL is going to be in the best shape. At least we think so, because it's the dominant sports form. But if the media deals start going down, advertising starts going down, then necessarily the franchise valuations are, I don't know if they're going to suddenly go back to a $100 million Cowboy valuation. I don't think that's ever going to happen in our lifetime. Maybe not in our kids' lifetime. But at some point, it's going to peak out. Like, I don't know if we're going to have like a $50 billion Cowboys valuation. I don't think. I mean, if any team could go high, it's Dallas, maybe the Lakers, depending on who they've got. I think maybe the Yankees, maybe I've heard the Dodgers could actually become one of those guys. Is way up at the top. But no, I don't think the Cowboys are going to sell anyway, so it's kind of a moot point.
What about just, I'm trying to cover all the teams. Would the Lakers be the NBA one, or was that still the Knicks, you think? Or Boston? Celtics, because wasn't there like, they might be selling to the Celtics?
Yes, yeah. With Grossbeck is putting them up for sale. So that's going to bring in a lot of money. See, the Knicks are oh man, that team has been so poorly run for so long that has way undershot the value of that team. How many times we talked about it on this show of like, oh, Knicks they have to have the Knicks involved because that's just the way. Well, I understand why that sentiment is there. New York, basketball, Madison Square Garden, all of that. But it's kind of been put on pause since the 90s. And even before then, you have to go way further back. The Knicks way outrate their success. But if they were successful maybe 2/3 as much as the Celtics or Lakers, they'd be number one. Just they don't have that history. The Lakers have great history. The Celtics have great history. The Knicks don't.
Yeah.
So that valuation could be really high. The Lakers, I think it is a little dependent on who they have, and I know Los Angeles is a Lakers town. But what if they went through like 10 years of nobody?
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't really, I mean, we saw some of that like pre-Kobe, post-Magic, a little post-Kobe, pre-LeBron, but we haven't seen like a decade of, oh gosh, who? What?
Yeah, there was like that gap of Magic until Shaq got there a few years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously Shaq and Kobe kind of together hand in hand
Mhm.
over there too. But yeah, you think about it, it wasn't because I was thinking about, I'm like, man, it had to have been longer than 4 years. But you think about Magic, what, retired 92? 91, 92 the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Shaq broke my heart, went over there in 96. So it's
Yeah,
been a few years.
Yeah, but it's not long though. Like
No.
where the Knicks will have long stretches of ineptitude. I mean, the Celtics, I think, have had some longer-ish ones, but I emphasize ish. They don't really have like 15 years of wow, they're kind of an also ran.
Mhm.
But the Knicks could be a whole lot bigger, not to the level of a Dallas Cowboys.
I'm looking at Forbes because I think everybody's heard about the Forbes franchise values, right? So this is from last year. Yeah, the world's 50 most valuable sports teams 2023. I wonder when they're going to do. This was September, so maybe we're getting a new one coming up here, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably.
Lakers are not the highest NBA valued team. Boston is not the highest valued NBA team. The Knicks are not the highest team. It's the Warriors, number 3.
I'm not surprised.
Number 3 overall. So,
in that same podcast, they were doing like their, like again, the most broadly valuable franchises.
mhm.
They mentioned the Warriors and the 49ers as well.
Knicks are actually number 9, so they're the second highest NBA team right now.
Behind the Lakers, ahead of the Celtics.
No, behind the Warriors.
Oh, it's right.
Yeah, Warriors
So
and
ahead.
the Knicks.
Wow. Again, the potential there, and I'm sure the Knicks' success of the past few years is helping a lot.
Mhm.
Gosh, if they win a championship.
Lakers are the third highest NBA team. I'm scrolling through because it's like all the world, so you got a lot of soccer teams in this thing.
Right. Yep.
Man, I'm going down here. There's a drop off. Finally the Bulls show up at number 39.
Yep. I'm not surprised. I mean,
Then Boston at 43.
I
So,
was struggling in mentally, like, okay, who'd be next? And thing is that after Steph Curry leaves the Warriors,
yeah.
not that they're going to suddenly become a nobody. They're not going to return to the depths of super inept 90s aughts era Warriors. Gosh, we forget about how bad.
The PJ Carlissimo era.
Oh my gosh. It's if anyone who's young and is like, hey, Warriors, they've always been great. No, they haven't. They were like right up there with I'm trying to think who's like the most inept teams right now. Like, think of the most inept teams ever. If you're listening to this show right now, you're like in your mid 20s or so, and all you know is the Warriors and Steph and being one of the dominant teams. Ponder like the current Carolina Panthers, but then multiply that by like a couple decades.
Yeah.
That was the Warriors. They sucked.
They were bad.
No. And now, wow, Steph Curry so changed that franchise. Being where they're at in the Bay Area, there's a lot of money involved, fairly new arena.
Right.
I think they'll be okay even post Curry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe not quite to that valuation, but they're going to be up there for a while.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But yeah, there's definitely, I mean, you throw soccer into this equation. I can't. Does soccer have private equity? Do you know off the top?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The whole sports washing thing.
Okay.
Oh, that's very much a thing. Like how Newcastle United over in the Premier League is owned by the Saudis.
Okay.
I saw Andrew Brandt tweeted, like, because someone asked, like, so how long till this chips away to the point where one of these PIFs?
Oh, the PIF, yeah.
Or like that. Okay, now by PIF,
no,
I mean the
Live
Saudi
Tour.
one.
Yeah,
so
the
I should
Live
say
Tour.
private equity.
Yep.
The PIF is a Saudi one that we've been hearing about. How long until one of those types of organizations takes over? He said it's going to be decades.
You're talking for the NFL, right?
Right.
Okay.
So if anyone's worried about, just to use that one example, are the Saudis going to take over the Panthers? No. and maybe not in our lifetimes. No.
To wrap it up with this thing here too, because we hear a lot of former players say they want to run a franchise, right? They want to own a franchise. And when we talk about in terms of the NFL, who are the two names that you always hear about maybe potentially being owners? Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, right?
Mhm.
Does this potentially help them maybe accomplish that?
Yes, absolutely. You don't need as much money to take over a team.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And isn't that good then for the NFL if you can get a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning to own a team?
yes, it is, because that's more public. That's good publicity.
Mm-hmm.
You always want good publicity. I mean, there's potential bad publicity depending on where. I mean, okay, look, most of these private equity firms you were just mentioning, they're not connected to a foreign government or a particular entity that is questionable, moral ethics or something like that. Most are not. Some are, most are not. So in most cases, we're barely going to notice anything. I mean, that's the case with most of the other private equity investments in other teams across America. You don't really hear about much to them because they're usually something like a BlackRock or something like that. It's a regular firm. Yeah, if you had something that is built up its own set of controversy like the Saudi PIF, that's bad publicity. But in most cases, there's going to be good publicity because you have more people that can get involved that are like a Brady or a Manning. Heck, you got that with Magic with Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's generally a plus, even if you wouldn't immediately associate Magic Johnson with Washington Commanders football, but he's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. All right. That's your business of sports for this Wednesday morning. Let's take a quick break, regroup, throw some baseball talk, throw some football talk in here as we start to wrap things up. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Looking for your first home, maybe a new home, or maybe with hunting season coming up here, maybe you're kind of interested in having your own hunting land to go to. That way you don't have to, rent or get a land lease or go on public land all the time. Well, hey, check out Woods and Water Realty for all of your real estate listings, whether it is if you're looking for that new home or your first home, or maybe just your getaway to put somewhere to put a camper on a little parcel of land, or maybe you're looking for that hunting parcel. Woodsandwater.com. Check out all the listings over there. Woods and Water Realty, your real estate store. As we approach the final month of this Major League Baseball season, we talked a little bit about the races in the for postseason division and such. If you had to pick one of the current division leaders right now, who's the one that won't finish as a division champion? If you had to pick one right now.
So how do we do the Central right now? Because it's a tie.
So how about the Central? You just pick who you think is going to win.
Okay.
Because you still think it's Cleveland, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I could technically say I don't think the Royals. But
so let's take the AL Central out of this then, since they're tied. Okay. Of all the other division leaders, who is the one that you think is most likely, if you had to pick one, and it could be like very, very least likely, unlikely to happen, who's the one that you would pick that you think won't finish it? And maybe avoid the AL East too, because that's close too.
Yeah.
Take those two out of it. So.
And then avoid it, so we're down to
So we're down to two at that point. But so Phillies, Brewers, Dodgers, and Houston.
This is really tough. I will say Philadelphia.
Really?
I don't feel great about any of those. Like, I think all four of those are winning because the Dodgers are getting more talent back, and they're more talented than the Diamondbacks or Padres. Brewers have way too big of a lead where I would consider them to be likely to suddenly collapse. Seattle turning this around? What? No, I know they're close, but gosh, what? No. So I'm kind of defaulting to Philadelphia underperforming. They've had a tougher schedule second half of the season, and they have not played as well. And maybe Atlanta figures out something, and they go on a run, and suddenly they close that up. It's still a pretty big gap at this point of the year. 6 games, however much it is that's tough to overcome.
I think it was last week, or no, it was over the weekend. I heard this listening to the Brewer game on the way back from Green Bay. This kind of puts it maybe into perspective. It kind of shocked me. Since the All-Star break, Phillies were the worst record.
Yep. They have not been that great.
No.
I mean, granted, Atlanta's also not been that great, but I could see, I can already give you a hint of picks and predicts for later on today. I think the Braves will continue to be hot. I don't know. I mean, I know they've dealt with so many injuries, but they've been replenishing some other reinforcements. I think the Phillies are the most likely one to not finish in first. And that being said, I think they will finish in first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm so tempted to pick the Dodgers just because of how hot the Diamondbacks and the Padres are kind of making that push. I'm so tempted to do that.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one, I'm going to go Houston as being the least likely. And I'm like you, I'm not confident, but if I have to pick one, I'm going to pick.
It doesn't help, again, for Seattle being so decrepit on offense.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't seem like a team that's suddenly going to chase down the Astros unless like 5 of their players get injured. And then, I mean, at that point, well, you could say that about any team if they have like 5 key players. Well, that's different. Presuming everyone is at either full strength or expected strength based on who is currently injured. No, I don't see that happening. Houston might actually be. Could I actually say the Astros are a safer bet than the Brewers over the Cubs? And again, we're talking maybe tenths of a percentage. I think I'm saying that because of the Cubs' level of talent, that we're kind of waiting for them to be good. And well, we're 5 months into the season. Is it going to happen? And does that suddenly finally happen and that the lack of Yelich hits the Brewers at the wrong time and we have a miracle September come. But again, that's a 9-game deficit to overcome in a month. We're just saying 6 is practically impossible. 9? And we haven't seen any indication that the Cubs are ready to go hot and the Brewers are ready to go cold. This would have to start now.
And I feel like, too, and I don't know how much we can bank, but remember, Brewers are the only team, too, that have not lost 4 in a row all season long. So it's not like they have gone on these slumps. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know it's kind of a, well, you're basing it off that. But, I mean, I think there is something to that, too.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit to that. Like, this isn't a team that we have seen go on long slumps. Yes, they've probably, lost 3-1-1, then lost a couple more after that. But we're not talking about long losing streaks with this Brewers team.
Yeah. That's not who they are.
Mhm.
That's not the way that they're built this year. So it would be against the form of the team as we've come to understand them. And by now, we can safely say that about every team. We understand who, well, Bill Parcells here, but you are who you are right now. And they're not a team that's going to lose. They're not going to go like 10-20 to close out the season while the Cubs go 20-10.
Mhm.
Practically, it could. Yes, it can happen, but it's very doubtful that both of those things are going to happen, regardless of looking at the schedule. There'd have to be fundamental changes there. It's more that I really distrust the Mariners' ability to overcome a 3-game lead than even the Cubs on a 9-game. But both
Mhm.
are like 0.3, 0.4% chances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you factor in the whole Seattle, well, they fired the manager. They use, that sort of like motivation sort of thing there too. But
Right.
I don't feel good about any of those. Is it so a little receiver defer?
A little bit.
Little receiver of the current leaders right now. And I know we got a tie in the AL Central, so let's take them out. But AL East slightly with the Yankees. Receiver defer, all the division leaders will win the division by the end of next month. All the current division leaders will win a division by next month.
I will receive on that.
Yeah, I think so too.
And as close as some of these races have been, there's also been a good amount of stability. We've been waiting for the Dodgers to be overcome. I guess we were waiting for Seattle to be overcome, and they had a big lead. I can't remember the stat exactly, but it's put it this way: it's pretty rare for the Mariners to blow as big of a lead as they had. But then again, that big lead came way earlier in the season. This wasn't like a September blowing of a 10-game lead.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think all of them, and I might even say the Yankees. I would pick the Yankees. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Tell you what, should we do some picks and predicts coming up here?
Yes, let's.
Just checking to make sure I didn't miss anything football related. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to see anything until maybe this afternoon.
Yeah.
So, but okay, let's take a quick break. We'll start to wrap up things here this morning with some picks and predicts here. Got some baseball games to go for. So, and then no, we got college football tomorrow, so we'll have to save that for tomorrow. So, all right, quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes to wrap up things here this morning. Time for some picks and predicts brought to you by the Elbow Room in Eau Claire. Reminder, next Friday, if you don't have a particular streaming device and you want to watch the game, Elbow Room will have it up over there, including drink specials over there, too, to watch a little Green Bay football next Friday. So, or if you're just looking for a spot to catch any of the games, whether it's baseball or such, head on over to the Elbow Room, again, located right next to the Banbury Place in Eau Claire. Reminder, too, you can start to make your pro football picks on our Pro Football Weekly Pick'em Challenge at our website. If you want to start making them now, you just have to go to sportstalk1051.com, click on the fan cave, and scroll down to the bottom there, and you'll see it there. They do have all the weeks up. So if you want to start making them right now so you don't forget, make sure you go and do that now. Or wait a little bit until next week when games officially kick. A week from tomorrow, man. Right? Yeah, week from tomorrow.
Wait for the waiver wire to be finished.
Yeah, right.
Too, yeah.
So, all right, let's do some baseball picks here. I was talking about it the other day. We had some good series going on this week. Some really good ones. Although Kansas City has been making it one-sided right now with Cleveland. So
I'll say they get the saw coming right now. Royals get the sweep.
Ooh, Michael Wacha on the mound for that's gonna be a day game there too. I'm gonna go Cleveland. They avoid the sweep. So
okay.
Houston at Philadelphia.
World Series rematch.
Yeah. Philly blanked them last night, 5-0.
I'll say Philadelphia gets another victory.
I'm gonna go Houston tonight, just because we need the Brewers to catch them. So let's go with how about Toronto at Boston?
Boston needing to get some wins here. No, I'll go with the Blue Jays.
I'll go with the Blue Jays too in this one. Does Minnesota pick up a win against Chris Sale and the Braves tonight?
No.
Okay.
I saw that matchup. I'm like, So, and again, I'm confident on this, so you know what's going to happen. Twins will somehow get the win.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to go Atlanta on this one too. Padres at the Cardinals.
Ooh, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Hey, so what's up with the St. Louis fans like not showing up anymore?
Fair weather. So I'm just kidding.
I thought they were better than. Granted, they're not used to a bad team. It doesn't really happen there. I'm gonna go San Diego.
I will go with the Padres as well. How about let's go with Baltimore Dodgers.
Ooh, boy.
Baltimore got the 3-2 win last
Burns,
night.
and here's Walker Buehler. I think I'll take the Dodgers.
I'm gonna go Dodgers tonight too. Mets, Arizona.
Another good one.
Mets picked up an 8-3 win last night.
Yeah, I'll take Diamondbacks baseball for this one.
I'll go with the Diamondbacks too, and then Brewers, Giants. Freddie Peralta, Kyle Harrison.
I can't see the Brewers getting swept. I mean, those things do happen every so often. You're like, what? I mean, not that the Giants are bad, but you'd think the Brewers should not be swept at home. I'll take the Brewers.
I'll go Brewers, and it's going to be wrong, but I feel like Freddie Peralta's going to have a good night.
I think he's kind of due.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. I will go with that one. So
okay.
All right. Those are your picks and predicts.
By the way, will the White Sox set the record at the rate they're going? They're going to have to, like a couple days ago, they'd have to go like 12-19 the rest of the season to avoid the Mets' infamous.
Oh, so they'd have to win 12 of 19 to avoid it?
Or they have to go 12-19.
Right. So they'd have to win 12 games?
12 out of like 20.
Oh, they'd have to go
games.
12-19. Okay.
Yeah.
They ain't going to get 12 wins.
No.
I think they're not going to get
maybe
it.
They need to win 9. I have to do my math on this, but no, I'm not confident in that either.
Yeah. Nope.
Hey, they played 2 today. Rain out last night.
Who did they get? Oh, they got Texas.
I'm seeing the video right now from last night. Wee bit rainy down in Chicago last night.
Hey, they're not the cheapest ticket in town according to my schedule either for baseball.
What?
So you know on ESPN when you go to the schedule they have tickets as low as whatever. I know this is very generic and very basic. The cheapest ticket, you kind of made fun of them already. For just $2, you could go to the Padres and Cardinals game.
Wow.
Just $2.
Cardinals fans checking out on the season.
$2. And I open it up. Oh, yeah. First base terrace. Right field pavilion. Left field pavilion. Row 1, $2.
I guess there's always next year.
That's vividseats.com.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's
There you got
a
it.
little bit of a surprise. I mean, they're not moving on to the NFL. That's for sure. In St. Louis, nope. It's one of the few cities where it's like, nah, actually, we're good. Wow, that is kind of surprising.
I'm just kind of seeing where if I wanted to sit a little bit closer. Oh, okay. So if I wanted to sit like first baseline, $19.
What time is that game?
That game is tonight.
You could go down there and watch a Cardinals game for
$6.45.
$2. Granted, the gasoline would be way more expensive than that. But hey, get down there, $2 to watch Cardinals and Padres.
Most expensive game shouldn't be a big surprise. Baltimore Dodgers, 85. 85. But then there's a drop. The next closest or most expensive game, Mets at the Diamondbacks, $20.
Interesting.
Yeah. A lot of fives. A lot of fives on this one.
By the way, I was looking through the Wild schedule to see, are there any decent ticket? Nope. They're still super expensive.
Yeah.
Actually, like the two games that I found like the cheapest dish tickets against Columbus at the very beginning of the season. You'd think would be more, but it's probably because it's Columbus and they're one of the only teams that's never even made it. They've never made a conference finals or an overall semifinals, however you want to look at it. They've never done that in their history. And election night.
Oh.
I was like, oh my gosh, prices are, that's why.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of people for assorted reasons are like, do I want to watch a hockey game when it's all going on? But hey, if you really don't care about politics at all, that might end up being a good time to go check out a Wild game.
Yeah, absolutely. So they didn't announce the Utah team yet, have they?
The name?
Yeah.
That's not going to be till like next summer, probably.
Oh, God,
You're going to be.
So they're just going to be called Utah Hockey Club?
This year, they're going all Washington football team.
Come on.
Utah Hockey Club. It's official. They got the jerseys. They got the branding, all of it.
Yeah, I see the logo now. Very creative guys. I roll.
Well, that's kind of the point. Like, they don't want to get married to something and then change it. So they kind of have to be, again, as I understand it, those are going to be the colors. But the logo, the name is all going to be different.
I'm good with the colors. A little Carolina blue in there. Yeah.
It's different. Like, they're just not another team that has light blue and black.
Mm-hmm.
So, got that.
Yeah.
So, I'm okay with that. I'm still curious if they go with, what were the options again that you were like, oh boy, you'd have to become a fan?
Oh, the Yeti.
Yes,
yeah,
Utah Yeti.
I will change my allegiance. I'm sorry, but I would.
It's a little too alliterative for my taste. Utah Yeti.
Too literate? What'd you say?
Was it? Oh gosh, what did I just say? Whatever I just said, where it flows a little too cleanly.
Gotcha.
Like,
okay.
Utah Yeti. And like, okay.
See, I'd rather have it make sense like Utah Yeti instead of like, okay, I'm sorry, but does Los Angeles have any lakes?
No, and that was from back in the era when you could move around and keep your name, and people didn't really care about it. And now, I mean, if that happened today, now the state of Minnesota would have to take ownership of this. Like,
well, it's like Utah Jazz. Go back to New Orleans.
That's the craziest one of all.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have the Arizona Coyotes that the franchise has officially been suspended. It may never return. What are we doing here? Is it that precious? I mean, I know there are Coyotes fans, and I don't want to make fun of them because they are legit fans. But come on, the team moved. We know what happened.
I hope, against all hope, that if they do become the Yetis, we have...
Or Yeti, I think it's going to be that.
Whatever. Plural, those Yetis, right? Isn't it?
I think it is just Yeti.
Is it just Yeti? A pack of Yeti? A family of Yeti? I don't know. Anyways, what I was going to say is I hope, against all hope, we have a Yeti call. Like we have a wolf call for some games, a panther growl or whatever. Mm-hmm. We have a Yeti call for some of those. For like when there's a goal scored or something like that.
That would be good.
Fully embrace the Bigfoot calls out there.
Apparently also Yeti plural can be with or without the S.
Okay, it sounds better with the S.
Well, now I'm seeing Yeti plural, and now I'm to all sorts of Facebook comments and Reddit, and like, okay, so wait, what?
There's people that take this serious.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Like, no, it's not. Like, okay. You're probably the same people who probably should be going to a hockey game on election.
Never know. But I hope we can You should have a Bigfoot calling contest and
Mhm.
record it.
That would be pretty. I don't. I will.
Yeah. Like that. Get her done.
Ryan Smith, who now they own the Jazz and now they're owning the Utah Hockey Club, seem to be doing a pretty good job with like PR, public engagement, all of that. I would suspect if that's the name that is chosen, it's probably going to do something along those lines.
Got to get some sound effects of clubbing a tree, taking a piece of wood and hitting a tree, because that's how Bigfoots communicate. So,
Yeah, something
gotta get
like
that on there too.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you could do that with the hockey sticks hitting the ice. Same sound effect.
Yeah, I think so.
But I definitely would change allegiances, 100%. So, but I gotta wait another year. So,
and then
this is the final year for the Kraken. They gotta win. They gotta win the Stanley Cup. Gotta win the Stanley Cup.
A pretty tall order there.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah, so then you switch over to Utah, and then Seattle wins it next year, and Utah ends up being the worst team in the league. Then what?
If I'm anything, I am a dedicated fan. It is obvious that I stick with my teams, especially in hockey.
Well, but it's not necessarily a length, but
I stand by them through thick and thin. Just not name changes.
Hey, speaking of people that haven't been sticking through thick and thin, which former Packer that's been cut would you most like to see return to the Green Bay Packers? There's some interesting names here. Adrian Amos, cut.
Yeah, Rudy Ford, cut.
Big Bob Tunyon, cut.
Cut. I mean, he's already made the NFC North thing. I mean, he was like Detroit practice squad for a hot minute there. Obviously, Chicago last year, Green Bay, and then Minnesota for a hot minute too. So he's done through the NFC North. Who are some other ones out there off the top of your head? Do you know?
Equinemius St. Brown. Want to take another round there?
No, we're good at wideouts.
Rudy Ford.
No, we're good with safeties now.
Chris Burns, Oren Burks.
Oren Burks got cut.
Yep.
Oh, he got a lot of playing time with 49ers last year, 2 years.
Cut by the Eagles. Josiah DeGuara.
No.
Ty Summers.
No.
Shamar Jean Charles.
Shamar Jean Charles.
Jack Heflin. Tim Boyle. Hey.
Jack Heflin. Trash can full of dirt.
Yep.
Who? Tim Boyle. Yeah, Tim Boyle, the laser Boyle. Yeah.
Yep.
So he got cut.
Who, if you had to choose one to bring back to the Packers, who would it be? You have to choose one.
So
you have to choose one.
There's no running backs on that list?
Oh,
look at that. Time's out.
Lou Nichols.
Actually, yes. Lou Nichols. Give him a shot. I don't think he got a fair shot. He got hurt. Okay. And we didn't get to see that.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, just under the wire.
All right. DP and the Danettes, they're up next. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. We'll do this again tomorrow morning, just past 6. Talk to you then.